one thing I will make very clear is that Republican voters, even those who are big supporters of Trump, they do not like Putin one bit. We asked them in one word, how would you sum up Putin? And the most common two words were evil and dictator. So there is a tension there. Trump can't be seen to cozy up too much to Putin, even with his most loyal supporters.
It's worth saying that today, I can't believe actually how far away we've already travelled from this pretty appalling event. 8 years ago today, since one of the most shocking moments of Donald Trump's first term, these white supremacists marching through the streets of Charlottesville in Virginia, holding torches and chanting.
You will not replace us! You will not replace us!
It's pretty horrific scenes, and at the time, those scenes shocked the entire world, sparking questions about who exactly Donald Trump's supporters included. Well, almost a decade on, and with Donald Trump very firmly back in the White House, we thought we'd look again at who makes up the president's supporters and why. James Johnson is a pollster and the founder of the company JL Partners. Many of us in the UK don't get the appeal of Donald Trump. Plenty of people in the UK do, of course. How popular is he in the States right now, James?
So his approval rating is at around 49% in our latest polling. Now, actually, it slightly varies depending on which poll you use. There's a set of polls that have it near where we are. There's some polls who have him a lot less popular. Our view is that he's around that 49% mark, and we think we're picking up people who aren't too politically interested, so people are not skewing the polls in that way. And look, by presidential standards, that's not great. You know, Obama had a higher approval rating, George Bush had a higher approval rating. But by Trump standards, that is significantly higher than where he was in his first term. So I don't see out here in the States an abandonment of Trump by his voters. In fact, his approval rating with his base, with those people that voted for him in 2024, is at 91%.
Wow. OK. You did mention there, and I just wanted to make sure I've understood this correctly, that people who understand or know about politics skew the polling. Are you saying that people who know about politics don't like Donald Trump on the whole?
That yes, if you're more engaged in American politics, then you are more likely to lean left or be Democrat. Actually, the interesting thing is in the UK, that actually splits about even. You're about as likely to be right or left if you're interested in politics. But engagement in the US means that you're more likely to be younger, you're more likely to be higher educated, you're more likely to be online a lot during the day, getting online news, and all of those things make someone more likely to be Democrat. So my view is that some of these polls, we've had Gallup, we've had Ipsos, we've had other polling firms with Trump's approval down at 37, 38%. My view is that those polls are picking up people who are just too politically interested at this point in the cycle. Because think about it, if you're going out with a poll to the American public, the people you're going to pick up are the people who are more likely to be clamoring to answer a poll. Now, what we do and what other firms do is control for political interest. So we make sure we're only getting enough people in the sample who have that high level of interest. We're making sure we're getting those more blue collar, less interested people and voters into the sample. So that's my view on the difference. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my sense of what the polling looks like in America.
It's very interesting. I really struggle to understand how you could be ambivalent about Donald Trump. I don't understand the I don't knows or the don't minds. They're the people that completely baffle me.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not many of them. When you take out when you put in the don't knows in these polls, you often get only around 5 or 6%. So it's not that the disengaged people don't know what they think about Donald Trump. It's that they actually quite like him and think he's doing an okay job. And what I hear in the focus groups and in the interviews that I do is voters saying, okay, he might be a bit brash, he might be a bit aggressive, I might not agree with everyone, but goodness me, he is doing what he said he'd do. And that's the main factor behind his popularity with those more disengaged voters.
OK, and many of those disengaged voters would never dream of attending an event like that hideous rally in Charlottesville. But nevertheless, we have to acknowledge that amongst that crowd on that day 8 years ago are many supporters of Donald Trump.
Yes, I'm sure that's the case. It's interesting, perhaps it's to do with Trump winning that second term, but you don't see as much of that ugly side of the MAGA movement today in US politics. I don't know exactly why that is. Obviously, we had a similar sort of situation with Jan 6 in 2021. So those components absolutely do exist. But I think in terms of mainstream Republican politics, you see a bit less of that now. And of course, I am a humble, nonpartisan pollster, of course, but my Republican friends here in the US would turn around and say there's plenty of worrying elements of the left on, for example, the issue of Israel and the Jewish people.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you've made that point. That those views are certainly out there too. If you follow Donald Trump or the White House on social media, I mean they are frequent posters. It's fair to say. And today I happened to look at some of the comments underneath the posts about getting the National Guard out into Washington, D.C., which obviously they are trumpeting at the White House because that was announced yesterday. But I have to say, all the comments underneath the post were just about the Epstein files. This hasn't gone away, has it?
It is stalking Donald Trump, but I will make one point there, which is that it has not gone away if you are a very online commentator or poster. For most people, for the vast majority of Americans, this is not a big issue. And in fact, CNN did a poll a few weeks ago where they asked people what is the biggest issue facing America. And only one respondent in their poll of around 2,000 people said the Epstein files. Now, I do think that Republicans don't necessarily agree with the president on it. I think Republicans do want to know more. They want more of the files released. They doubt the president's account. But it's not enough to erode that sympathy and support for President Trump. They're worried about it, but they don't care about it enough to dent their loyalty. Do you remember that time? I think it was in 2016 when Donald Trump said he could go out and shoot people on Fifth Avenue in New York, and his voters would still back him. I think that same dynamic might be happening on the Epstein files.
Okay, interesting. And foreign affairs, lots of people, obviously across Ukraine, plenty of people in Europe are concerned about what might happen, what might come out of the talks in Alaska between Putin and Trump. Does any of that have an impact on his support and supporters?
Yeah, I mean, look, his supporters will really go where he is on this. After that shakedown of President Zelensky in the Oval Office back at the start of the year, all the Trump supporters were saying Zelensky is the problem, Zelensky's corrupt, and we need to back President Trump and pull funding for Ukraine. Now that Trump has taken a tougher position on Putin, all those same supporters are now saying we need to take a tough position on Putin and we need to back Zelensky. So Trump's voters will go with Trump on this, and whether that means a good outcome for Ukraine or a bad one on Friday, that's where I think his voters will go. It's another one where I think he can get away with a lot. But one thing I will make very clear is that Republican voters, even those who are big supporters of Trump, they do not like Putin one bit. We asked them in one word, how would you sum up Putin? And the most common two words were evil and dictator. So there is a tension there. Trump can't be seen to cozy up too much to Putin, even with his most loyal supporters.
Really interesting. Thank you very much indeed, James. James Johnson, who is a pollster and founder of JL Partners.